What's happening, financial coaches? Pete here. Hey, one of our Facebook members brought up a great point talking about working with couples and the difficulties of working with couples. And there can be difficulties. I actually really enjoy working with couples, especially couples that you know get together beforehand and decide they want to reach out to someone. And this is actually very popular in the Dave Ramsey programs. That people work on this together. Not everyone does. A lot of times. An individual in a couple, a spouse, a partner, whatever, might kind of start on their own. But oftentimes, especially when couples generally agree on something, it's usually because things have come to a head, because they're in an emergency, they're kind of in dire straits, and they both know it, and they want to work on stuff. So, I've worked with couples a lot, and I like doing that. Now, the difficulties of working with couples, and I'm going to talk about my personal difficulties with working with couples and how I usually overcome it, and where I even struggle quite a bit, sometimes with couples. But for me, the biggest struggle with couples is bringing both people to the table, especially when one person wants to work with one, with a financial coach or a financial expert or something like that, and the other person doesn't want to have anything to do with them. And this is the trouble. And I've talked to people and actually asked, hey, can I meet them? And and sometimes shook hands and talked about it, and I've been told, I don't know why we're doing this, we don't have to. And I've seen people with loads of credit card debt, and one person is stressed out about it and the other person doesn't think it's a big problem. And so there's this big difference, and my struggle with this is that if one person is going to come to the table and work with you and do a lot of things, and the other person is not, what you have are two opposing forces, and it is easier to destroy than it is to create. What I mean by that is, if one person wants to shop smart and save some money and reduce the grocery bill by 10% and maybe switch to a cheaper provider and then bring in a little extra money on a side hustle or something like that, that's great. But if someone has a shopping problem and they don't want to stop shopping, and they have a business and they're just sinking money into it, and it's good money after bad money, then what ends up happening is it's a lot easier to vaporize all the work that one person is doing, all the hard work. It is hard to figure out how to be financially responsible, and it is really easy to not be financially responsible, and that the easy part of that vaporizes all that hard work in an instant. And so this is where I have actually seen some people, when I've worked with the individual, realize that they need marriage counseling, or that the marriage isn't going to last, right? And that's a easy, obvious sign that they need to kind of step up with another professional, right? Someone in that world. But what I like to try to do is, if that's the issue, I have one person at the table and the other person is reluctant, or maybe they're interested, maybe they're curious, they haven't necessarily said no. If you can bring them to the table, what I like to do is kind of take a very soft approach to it, not a tell you what I'm doing, educate you, whip you into shape, be your drill instructor, any of that. What I usually will try to do is provide some sort of fun outlet to start a conversation about values and money. Because what I think the big problem is that the priorities are different between the two people, right? And oftentimes, the values can be similar, right? But sometimes they're disconnected. And so sometimes we have to work on values, and other times we have to work on priorities, and sometimes we have to work on both. But, most people will value saving money and living within their means and things like that, but they prioritize other things above or below that, right? Some people want to have a new car, and so not having a payment or not having debt isn't that high of a priority, and it might be for the other people. So what I want to talk about usually is try to find, and this is the tactic that I use, is that as we're having this conversation, what are one or two things? And if we can just find one, that's great. But what are one or two things that you both prioritize and value at the same level? Right. And maybe it's retirement, or maybe it is moving out of your starter home, or moving out of the apartment into your first home, or having a kid, or whatever it might be. It doesn't really matter to me. But what I want to do is find that common ground, something that they can both really sink their teeth into and be inspired by, because now we can set that as the goal. We can set up a process that they can both pour themselves into. And once they start finding success on that, now it's easier to take on some of the things where maybe they're slightly misaligned on, right? For some people, it's paying off the mortgage. They want to be mortgage free, and so it's not about, hey, I want a vacation once a year, and the other person says, I want to go on 4 vacations a year, right? We're going to have a little bit of a difference there, but they can both agree that all their extra money should go against the mortgage. And so it's one of those things where I'll print out your amortization schedule, or they will put it up on your refrigerator, put it there with magnets, cross off every payment. When you send in extra money, cross off those payments, and make that your fun joint activity, right? Try to find that common ground, find something that motivates both of you, because usually it is motivating and the motivation creates motivation, right? So seeing that progress creates more motivation for them. Hey, we crossed off one extra payment this year. What if we were able to cross off two extra payments? What if we were able to make 14 payments next year instead of the 12 scheduled payments? What if we were able to make 20? And so those types of things then become really the method which they get on board. They start finding the collaboration. They start finding success together, and then, like I said, kind of build on that. So I don't want to try to take on too many things, and especially when it comes to relationships and money, there are there are people that would rather split up than try to work through their money differences, right? And this is not uncommon, right? The biggest reason for divorce in America is for financial reasons. And so whether it's money stress or money arguments or whatever it is, this can be kind of that foundation for either a healthy marriage or a crumbling marriage. And I also think it's important for us to know, what we can do here. We can often do a lot. We can often do a lot. But if in some ways, people are just never going to get aligned, if we can't make progress, and someone's feeling rejected, and it's not by us, like I said, I really hope that you might have someone that's in this field that you can refer them to. Maybe you can have some talking points that you can encourage someone to go and speak to a professional about it or whatever, because, if they think that coming to someone who is focused on money and that's going to solve all their issues, and the issues run much deeper than that, that's probably going to be something that's well out of your wheelhouse, one, skill wise, but also for liability reasons. And so what we want to do is help people help themselves and get in a healthy place. And sometimes if they can go and get that help, kind of work on their foundation and then come back to you, that's even better, right? So they've kind of gotten on the same page on some of those types of things and then come back to you. So those are my thoughts on working with couples. I like doing it. And, when you do have couples that are already on the same page, ready to rock and roll, I've got lots of things that we can often do with that. I've got some fun activities that couples like to work on. I've got fun activities where couples can bring in their friends and other couples and we can do them together. They're very light, but I think you get good insights into kind of what your value structure is, and also helps you flush out some of the financial things that you want to do in life. So, we can talk more about those later, but that's all I wanted to talk about today. See you later.